Welcome to On Beat. I'm your host, Ben Leahy, and I have with me today Sean Gore. For this first episode, we're going to be talking about specific music influences of the past that we can still hear today in culture, on the radio, and even film. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Sean?
I am a rising senior at Winters Mill High School. My mother is a drama teacher. She does musical theater. She's been a drama teacher for almost 40 years now. She was at North Carroll, which just closed down. So cool. I've been involved in theatrical stuff over the years.
That's cool. What plays or productions have you specifically been involved in the past?
Well, when I was a little kid, I was in Seussical, the musical. And as I got older, I kind of stopped being in the plays just because she couldn't force me to do it anymore. But I still go to all the plays. I'm not big on acting, but I enjoy the musical aspect.
That's cool. And I'm your host, Ben Leahy. I am a rising college freshman at Savannah College of Art and Design this upcoming fall. And as far as my background's in music, I play guitar. I retired from playing trombone in my middle school band. And like Sean, I have a taste in music all across the board: country, hip-hop, pop, classic rock, electronic. And that's what we're here to talk to you about today.
That's right.
Okay, so let's get into it. So for our first segment, soundtracks. I thought this would be a fitting topic because our guest, Sean, has an intense background in the field of theater and the industry, coming from his family. So I just thought, how important would you say is music to a production or a film?
Music can make or break a production. If you don't have good music, you're not going to have a good not gonna have a good film, not gonna have a good play. If that's what you're relying on, if it's a musical, then it has to have good music.
Yeah. What can you tell us a little bit about some of the past musicals or films that you've either seen, worked on, been a part of?
Well, my favorite musical is Les Miserables. For any of you who've heard that, it's a masterful piece of work. I can't remember who composed it, but that's kind of bad.
Victor Hugo, I believe.
He wrote the book, but yeah.
Yeah. And coming from production aspect of the more technical aspect, what kind of strengths did you see in it?
In Les Mis?
Yeah. Were there any strong musical numbers that stood out?
Well, the strongest musical number, which is probably what the most famous song in the play is, One Day More, sorry. And that involves the entire cast, and everyone's harmonizing, singing their own parts in the song, coming in their different times. And that's kind of the climax of the movie, because everything is shaping up in the storyline. That's when all the main conflicts are coming together,
resolving. Yeah. So I guess if it pairs well, then it's gonna really hit the mark with the audience. And so I guess you've seen Les Miserables. Have you seen it on Broadway or a local production?
No, I was never lucky enough to be able to see it on Broadway when it was there, but my mom's former student, his name is Hank, for the end of the year, he bought her the 25th anniversary disc, and so I've watched that a few times.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in addition to Les Miserables, what kind of professional productions have you seen? New York City, anywhere else?
Most recently, we saw Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway. That won Emmy or
Tony.
It won the Tony for Best Actor.
Yeah.
That actor.
That's been getting a lot of critical acclaim recently. Can you tell us a little bit about either the plot, how the music fits in with it?
Well, basically, Evan Hansen is very socially awkward. He doesn't have many friends. He has anxiety, all that kind of, a lot of conflict and internal conflict that a lot of teens can relate to. And so I think that's part of what makes it so popular, is that it's a relatable story. And he tells a lie in order to spare the feelings of this family whose son has passed away. And in order to stay consistent with his lie, he has to keep on indulging more and more in it, and then eventually finds himself in a pretty deep hole. And
nice.
Everything's resolved in the end, but it's
it sounds like a good story.
It's a good story.
So getting back to the music aspect of it, what stuck out to you in the show? Anything in particular? As a whole, did it work well?
Well, something that was important to me is humor, because it is kind of a dark storyline. The kid Connor, who he committed suicide, and he was the last person who really spoke to Evan before he died, and he signed Evan's cast out of just he wasn't friends with him, but he did that just because he bumped into him or whatever, and he's like, yeah, whatever, I'll sign your cast. So it is a dark storyline. It has to do with suicide, depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff, but it is humorous because Connor comes back throughout the play as a spirit, and he's kind of just guiding Evan along. And of course, it's not the real Connor, but it is his body and
his voice.
Yeah,
and the sound is really important.
Yeah, and so Connor, for the rest of the plays, kind of comes in as comedic relief because he's really sarcastic, and that was really important for the show.
Yeah. Well, I guess sounds and music are pretty important on productions like that in real life on Broadway in plays. Can you think of any examples, I guess, in the film industry, any kids' movies recently that have displayed this kind of characteristic? I know you were talking about Moana the other day. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just recently saw Moana for the first time, and then I watched it again because I loved it. Some of the songs are composed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is he's a Broadway star. He and a director and a writer. He wrote In the Heights and he wrote Hamilton. And
those are two also critically acclaimed plays that have gotten a lot of buzz over the years for their score specifically. And continue.
Yeah, Moana, it takes place on this tropical island, and a lot of Disney musicals, I'm sure, as you all know, they have to have kind of a happy undertone. And I think important thing that Moana did is that or a cool thing that they did was that they kind of make it sound more tropical without losing kind of the classic Disney kind of feel. And so it's it's something that Disney does with every movie. They kind of give it its own little spin.
Yeah. And so obviously Lin-Manuel Miranda, after working on the Broadway show Hamilton, bringing his talents over to a film, did you see any of those aspects carry over in the score or any specific
I did
songs?
Actually. The first time listening to the first big number in the movie, which is titled Where You Are, I heard a little bit of a melody from one of the songs in Hamilton, and I said to my mom, hey, did you hear that? And we talked about it a little bit, and yeah, it was interesting to see how a sound from not even a big part, just a little melody from Hamilton could I could hear it almost immediately in this this Disney film.
Yeah.
And he did use some of the same singers that he had in Hamilton in Moana. some of this Hamilton stars were a part of the score as well.
Cool. So, I guess if it worked well for him in Hamilton, maybe in The Heights, I heard some of those undertones in it too, then I guess he thought it was going to reach his audience who was watching this kids film as well. And so maybe that's why he put them in. And that's why it's garnered a lot of success in the box office. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Moving on to our next segment, actually, we have the artist spotlight. And who did we choose for this week, Sean?
We chose Daft Punk.
Cool. Yeah, and so if our audience is not familiar with the duo, they are they started off as a house duo coming out of the 90s and the 2000s, making hard electronic, not dubstep, but dance music. They're kind of pioneers of the genre. And for their recent album, not so recent, 4 years ago, they decided to change things completely and move to live instrumentation for a majority of the track, the project. And it won a lot of Grammys, about like 4 or 5, which is pretty good for that year. And, they, by switching their style so much, it was a huge risk because they had built their fan base over the past 15 years from this hard-hitting electronic sound, and it really worked out well for them. So, what are your thoughts on the album as a whole, Sean?
Something I love about Random Access Memories is the flow of the album. If you can listen to one song, and every song on the album is fantastic, but if you listen to it all the way through, each song kind of plays into the next one and the next one and the next one, and it has this really good flow, which I think that is, a lot of great albums have that, and Random Access Memories certainly did that well.
Yeah, and going from a technical standpoint, the production of this album was very well received. You have the duo, Daft Punk, producing a majority of it, and then people like Pharrell Williams coming in on a couple of the tracks, like Lose Yourself to Dance, Get Lucky, Fragments of Time, and really helping out, bringing his own unique sound to the project, and it really worked out well. There were a lot of hits off of this, specifically Get Lucky, that achieved major success on the radio and other streaming devices. And I guess as far this move from digital drum machines and 808s to live instrumentation can actually be seen in today's standards on the radio as well. Specifically, I was listening to Flower Boy by Tyler, the Creator, a couple weeks ago, and I've noticed that a majority of the album is actually live instrumentation. When, as a rap hip-hop star, he would usually stick to drum machines, the computer, to produce a lot of his beats. But this album is actually achieving a lot of critical success from his fan base. Talking about stars that are switching over to more instruments, can you think of any, Sean? It can be electronic, hip-hop.
Well, not specifically what you're talking about, but I know that Post Malone, in his most recent album, he's a rap star, in case you don't know. He's a rap artist for the most part right now, but he did have some tracks on his album that were only him and his guitar. It was a completely acoustic, and it was a lot different from the rest of the album. And
yeah, and he's Stoney, right? That was his last album.
Mm-hmm.
That was very well received for his fans. That was his first album. Yeah, I mean, Daft Punk, they were pioneers of their craft when they started out. They made a completely new genre coming out of the kind of alternative stage of the 90s. And this move really worked out well for him. Anything to add?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Our wrap up. Thank you for coming, Sean. It's been a real pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm your host, Ben Leahy. Thank you for tuning in. And I'll catch you next time on Beat. Signing off.